The grand observation deck of the Imperial flagship sparkled with holographic displays, each showing different angles of a small blue planet. Queen Alta stood tall, her silver-scaled skin reflecting the soft light as she watched the feed with growing amusement. Her four eyes blinked in sequence as she studied the primitive vehicles and weapons of the species called humans. "My queen," said Admiral Tom, his tentacles twitching nervously. "The reports suggest we should be careful. These humans show unusual patterns in their combat history." The Queen's laughter echoed through the chamber, making several officers flinch. "Look at them, Admiral. They still use chemical propulsion for their spacecraft. Their strongest weapons are mere atomic devices. They fight with projectile weapons that use gunpowder." She waved a clawed hand dismissively at the screens. The tactical display showed human military bases scattered across their planet. Tanks rolled across desert landscapes, ships sailed on vast oceans, and aircraft soared through the skies. To the Queen's eyes, they looked like children's toys compared to her empire's mighty warships. "But, Your Majesty," persisted Admiral Tom, "our deep scan results are troubling." He gestured to another screen showing historical data. "These humans have fought more wars among themselves than any species we've encountered. They've developed from spears to space travel in just a few thousand years." The Queen's upper lip curled in contempt. "That only proves their barbaric nature. They waste time fighting themselves instead of advancing their civilization properly." She moved closer to the main screen, studying the human military parade. The soldiers marched in neat rows, their primitive rifles held at attention. "Their strongest warrior could not even lift the weight of our lightest armor," she declared. "Their fastest runner would be outpaced by our youngest cubs. Their most powerful computers are like counting beads compared to our quantum networks." The War Council chamber fell silent as the Queen paced, her long robes trailing behind her. The gathered admirals and generals exchanged worried glances, but none dared to contradict their ruler openly. "Prepare the invasion fleet," the Queen commanded. "We'll take their world in a single cycle. These humans will make excellent servants once they learn their place." A young general named Rex stepped forward, bowing deeply. "My Queen, if I may suggest, perhaps we should study them longer. There are reports of their unusual adaptability." "Enough." The Queen's tail lashed in irritation. "I've conquered 32 worlds. I've broken the will of the mighty rock breakers of System 7. I've tamed the floating minds of the gas giants. These humans are nothing." She pointed to an image of human soldiers training with primitive obstacle courses. "Look at them scramble through the mud like insects. They tire so easily. They break so easily. They die so easily." The Queen's laughter filled the chamber again, as she watched a human military exercise end with exhausted soldiers collapsing on the ground. "They can barely handle their own planet's gravity. How do they expect to face warriors born in high-gravity worlds?" Admiral Tom made one final attempt. "The analysis department suggests their greatest strength might be something we can't measure with our instruments. Their spirit, they call it." The Queen turned all four eyes on him, her amusement turning to anger. "Spirit? Admiral, you're starting to sound like a superstitious child. Spirit doesn't stop plasma bolts. Spirit doesn't deflect energy beams. Spirit doesn't destroy battleships." She straightened to her full height, towering over her officers. "In 3 days, we launch the invasion. I want this planet added to my collection before the next lunar cycle. These humans will learn what true power looks like." As the War Council dispersed, the Queen remained on the observation deck, watching the blue planet spin slowly in the holographic display. Her victory was assured. After all, how could these primitive beings possibly surprise someone who had conquered half a galaxy? In her supreme confidence, she failed to notice the small detail in the corner of the tactical display. A single human base that had somehow managed to detect their cloaked scout ships. The humans were already preparing, and they had no intention of becoming anyone's servants. The Imperial fleet descended upon Earth like a storm of metal and energy. Massive warships broke through the atmosphere, their weapons primed and ready. Queen Ulta watched from her command center, expecting to see panic and surrender. Instead, she witnessed something entirely different. "My queen, the humans are smiling," reported a confused sensor operator, watching through their high-resolution cameras as human soldiers took up defensive positions. The first wave of Imperial dropships approached a military base in what the humans called North America. The Queen's elite troops, encased in armor that could withstand direct hits from primitive nuclear weapons, prepared for an easy victory. "Begin the attack," she commanded. "Show these primitives the futility of resistance." The dropships opened fire, their energy weapons carving glowing paths through the air. But the humans had spread out, using their terrain with surprising skill. They fought from hidden positions, employing what seemed like outdated tactics that somehow proved effective against the Empire's advanced targeting systems. "Impossible," shouted the Queen as she watched one of her dropships spiral toward the ground. "How did they hit it? Their weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate our shields." The answer came in the form of a tactical report. The humans hadn't tried to overpower the shields. They'd figured out the shield's resonance frequency and fired multiple weapons simultaneously, creating a harmonic disruption that let their primitive projectiles through. In another sector, a small group of human soldiers had allowed themselves to be cornered in what appeared to be a tactical blunder. When Imperial forces moved in for the kill, they discovered too late that the entire area had been rigged with explosives, destroying 3 walker units and their crews. "They're using their weakness as strength," muttered Admiral Tom, watching the battles unfold. "They know they can't match our technology, so they're making us fight on their terms." The Queen's tail lashed in fury as another report came in. A squad of just 5 humans had somehow managed to board one of her destroyer-class ships. Instead of trying to capture it, they'd headed straight for the engine room. What they lacked in advanced weapons, they made up for with what they called high explosives, and knowledge of exactly where to place them. "The destroyer Grey Wind is lost, my queen," reported a communications officer. "The humans, they sacrificed themselves to destroy it." "Barbaric," the queen hissed, but there was a note of uncertainty in her voice. "They're willing to die just to destroy one ship." The battles continued across the globe. Wherever Imperial forces seemed to gain an advantage, the humans would change tactics. They used their planet's weather, terrain, and even their own technological limitations in ways the Empire had never seen before. "My queen," called out General Rex, "we're detecting massive movement under the oceans. The humans have underwater bases we didn't find in our initial scans." Before the Queen could respond, submarine-launched missiles erupted from the seas, overwhelming several Imperial ships through sheer numbers. The humans had hidden significant portions of their military power, revealing it only when they could cause maximum damage. By the end of what was supposed to be a simple conquest, the Empire had lost 17 ships and over 2,000 troops. They still held the technological advantage, but the cost of victory was already far higher than anyone had predicted. The Queen stood silently, watching the tactical displays show more human forces emerging from hidden positions across the planet. These weren't the actions of primitives awaiting slaughter. This was a species that had spent its entire history preparing for war, that treated combat as an art form, that had turned its very limitations into weapons. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "we should adjust our strategy." Admiral Tom nodded gravely. "The humans have a saying, my queen. They call it playing possum, pretending to be weak until the perfect moment to strike." For the first time in her reign, Queen Ulta felt something she'd never expected to experience while conquering a primitive world. Respect. These humans were going to make her earn every inch of their planet, and the cost would be paid in Imperial blood. The war room aboard the Imperial flagship buzzed with nervous energy as Queen Ulta reviewed the latest battle reports. Her claws left deep scratches in the metallic table as she read about another successful human guerrilla attack. "Tell me about this human they call Commander Jack," she demanded, bringing up a holographic image of a battle-worn human male. The grainy footage showed him leading troops through the ruins of what had once been an Imperial forward base. "He's unprecedented, my queen," Admiral Tom replied, his tentacles twisting anxiously. "He appears to have united several human resistance groups under his command. His tactics are unlike anything we've encountered." The screens displayed multiple battles where Jack's forces had emerged victorious. In one, they had used simple reflective surfaces to redirect Imperial energy weapons back at their sources. In another, they had turned the Empire's own gravity generators into weapons by overloading them at precisely the right moment. "Primitive species aren't supposed to adapt this quickly," the Queen muttered, watching another replay of Jack's forces taking down an Imperial walker using nothing but cables in the environment. "They're learning to use our technology against us." A sudden alert flashed across the main screen. Jack's forces had been spotted approaching another Imperial base. The Queen leaned forward, expecting to see their usual hit-and-run tactics. Instead, she watched in disbelief as human vehicles charged directly at Imperial defenses. "It's a suicide run," General Rex declared confidently. They'd finally lost their minds. But it wasn't suicide. As Imperial gunners focused on the charging vehicles, hidden human snipers took out key defensive positions. The vehicles themselves were unmanned, filled with a mixture of explosives and electromagnetic pulse devices the humans had reverse-engineered from crashed Imperial tech. "The base is lost," reported a communication officer. "Commander Jack's forces are already gone. They left a message, my queen." The Queen's 4 eyes narrowed. "Show me." A simple text transmission appeared. "The more advanced the system, the harder it falls. See you soon, Jack. Find him." The Queen roared, her patience finally breaking. "I want this human brought before me, dead or alive." But finding Jack proved impossible. His forces would appear from nowhere, strike with devastating precision, and vanish before the Empire could respond. More disturbing were the reports that other human resistance groups were copying his methods, adapting them to their own regions and resources. "My queen," Admiral Tom said carefully, "our psychological analysis suggests Commander Jack is not just fighting our forces. He's teaching his entire species how to defeat us." The Queen stalked to the observation window, watching Earth rotate below. What had started as a simple conquest had turned into a war of adaptation. Every Imperial technology deployed was studied. Every tactic was countered. Every advantage was somehow turned against them. "How many ships have we lost now?" she asked quietly. 32, my queen, plus hundreds of ground vehicles and thousands of troops. The humans, they don't try to match our strength. They find ways to make our strength meaningless." A new alert sounded. Another attack was beginning. This time, the humans had somehow managed to hack into Imperial communication systems. Instead of battlefield orders, Imperial troops heard human battle songs blasting through their helmets, destroying coordination and morale. "They're not just fighting," the Queen realized, watching her forces fall into chaos. "They're innovating. Every defeat teaches them. Every victory makes them stronger." She turned to her commanders, her voice hard. "Find Jack. He's the key to all of this. Find him, and we can still win this war." But deep in her mind, a new thought had taken root, one that no Imperial ruler had ever faced before. What if these humans, these supposedly primitive beings, had actually been testing the Empire all along? What if Commander Jack's emerging tactics were just the beginning of what humanity could do? For the first time in her conquest, Queen Alta felt something she'd never expected: doubt. Queen Alta paced furiously through her private chambers as reports of internal dissent flooded her screens. It wasn't just the humans causing problems now. Her own empire was beginning to fracture. "Another desertion, my queen," reported Admiral Tom. "The Brightwing Battalion has gone dark. We believe they're helping the humans." The Queen's tail lashed violently. The Brightwings were among her most elite troops, warriors who had helped conquer a dozen worlds. Now they were teaching humans how to operate Imperial technology. "Show me," she commanded. The tactical display revealed a series of battles where human forces demonstrated impossible familiarity with Imperial systems. Their attacks now disabled shield generators with surgical precision. Their makeshift weapons incorporated elements of Imperial design. Most troubling of all, they had somehow learned to jam Imperial communications using techniques only known to inner Empire forces. The humans aren't just learning from their alien allies, General Rex observed. They're improving our technology. Look at this. The screen showed a human vehicle that combined Imperial anti-gravity systems with their own primitive but robust combustion engines. When the anti-gravity failed, the vehicle simply switched to wheels and kept fighting. It was ugly, improvised, and impossibly effective. "My queen," a young officer interrupted. "We're receiving a transmission. It's from the Bright Wing Commander." The massive screen flickered to life, showing an Imperial warrior standing proudly next to Commander Jack. The Queen's claws dug into her throne as the deserter spoke. "We've seen something in these humans that the Empire has forgotten," the Bright Wing Commander declared. "They don't just fight. They adapt. They don't just learn. They improve. Every defeat makes them stronger. Every victory teaches them more." Commander Jack stepped forward, his battle-scarred face showing no fear. "Your Empire fights to conquer. We fight to survive. That's why you'll never win." Before the Queen could respond, the transmission cut off. But the damage was done. Throughout the fleet, warriors who had witnessed humanity's resilience began to question their mission. "The humans are sharing their innovations with our deserters," Admiral Tom reported grimly. "They've already improved our medical technology. Their understanding of battlefield medicine, developed over centuries of warfare, is remarkable." The Queen watched new footage of human Imperial joint operations. The humans' primitive but practical solutions complemented Imperial technology in ways her scientists hadn't thought possible. Their crude projectile weapons, when combined with Imperial energy systems, created hybrid guns that could penetrate any known defense. "They're calling it the best of both worlds," General Rex added. "Human ingenuity combined with Imperial technology. It's formidable." A new alert flashed. Another Imperial unit had gone dark. This time, it was an entire engineering corps, taking with them crucial technical knowledge. The humans would put it to use within days, creating new weapons and defenses that even the Empire's best tacticians couldn't predict. "My queen," Admiral Tom said softly, "perhaps we should consider." "No," she roared. "I will not be the first ruler to lose to primitives. Prepare my personal guard. If these deserters want to teach humans our ways, then I will show everyone why I rule the Empire." But as she issued her orders, the Queen couldn't ignore the growing evidence before her. Imperial warriors, renowned for their loyalty, were choosing to stand with humanity. They saw something in these primitive beings that she had missed, a spark of potential that could reshape the galaxy. In her private thoughts, a terrifying question emerged. Had she underestimated humanity so badly that her own forces would rather join them than continue fighting them? The answer came in another alert. 3 more Imperial units had deserted, taking their knowledge, technology, and loyalty to the species that the Queen had once laughed at. The storm of war was growing, and for the first time, she wasn't sure which side would emerge victorious. The Imperial Command Center shook with another explosion as Queen Ulta watched her forces retreat from yet another failed assault. On the main screen, a human counterattack unfolded with devastating precision. "They've mastered our shield technology," Admiral Tom reported, his voice heavy with disbelief. "But they've modified it in ways our engineers never considered." The tactical display showed human forces protected by flickering shields that adapted to different types of attacks. When hit by energy weapons, they turned crystalline. Against kinetic weapons, they became fluid-like. The Empire's most powerful weapons splashed harmlessly against these hybrid defenses. "Impossible," the Queen snarled. "These modifications should have taken decades to develop." The humans call it lateral thinking, my queen, General Rex explained. They don't follow our rules of technological development. They improvise. On multiple screens, human forces demonstrated their newly acquired capabilities. They had taken Imperial technology and reimagined it through their primitive but practical lens. Massive Imperial walkers were being taken down by tiny human devices that exploited weaknesses no Imperial engineer had ever considered. Commander Jack's forces have breached the orbital defense network, a young officer reported nervously. They're using our own satellites against us. The Queen watched in mounting horror as human ships, crude hybrids of their own technology and Imperial systems, emerged from hidden bases across their planet. They weren't elegant or sophisticated, but they were brutally effective. Look at how they've modified our weapons, Admiral Tom said, pointing to a detailed scan. They've stripped away the safety protocols, the precision controls, everything we considered essential. They've made them simpler, more reliable, more human. A massive explosion lit up the tactical display. One of the Empire's most advanced destroyers had just been crippled by a weapon that combined primitive nuclear technology with Imperial power systems. It shouldn't have worked, but the humans had somehow made it work. My queen, General Rex interrupted. We're detecting a massive energy buildup in their northern continent. It's unlike anything we've seen before. The screen shifted to show a massive facility where humans had apparently reversed engineered the Empire's most closely guarded secret, their faster-than-light drive technology. But they hadn't just copied it. They'd rebuilt it from the ground up, creating something new and terrifying. They're not just learning our technology. The Queen realized, her four eyes wide with understanding. They're evolving it, making it their own. Another explosion rocked the command center. Human forces had breached their primary defense line, using tactics that combined primitive military strategies with advanced technology in ways no Imperial commander had ever imagined. Commander Jack is leading the assault personally, Admiral Tom reported. His forces, they're not just fighting like humans anymore. They're fighting like humans with Imperial technology, and we don't know how to counter that. The Queen's claws dug into her command chair as she watched her carefully constructed invasion crumble. The humans had taken everything the Empire had thrown at them, learned from it, improved it, and turned it back against their attackers. Launch our remaining reserves, she commanded, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. We must show these humans that. She was interrupted by a direct transmission from Commander Jack himself. His face appeared on the main screen, scared but determined. Your Majesty, he said, his voice carrying no fear, your remaining forces are standing down. They've seen what happens when humanity and Imperial technology truly combine. This war is over. The only question is whether you're wise enough to see it too. The Queen stared at the screen, at this human who had orchestrated the first true defeat her empire had ever faced. He hadn't just beaten her forces, he had transformed them, shown them a new way of thinking about warfare, about technology, about everything. In that moment, she realized that this wasn't just a turning point in the war. It was a turning point for her entire empire. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure if she was ready for what came next. The massive doors of Earth's main defense base shuddered as Queen Alta's personal guard breached them. She strode through the smoking entrance, her ceremonial armor gleaming, determined to end this war personally. This was no longer about conquest, it was about pride. "Bring me Commander Jack," she roared, her voice echoing through the facility's corridors. "Let's settle this warrior to warrior." The base seemed strangely quiet, too quiet. Her guards moved cautiously forward, their advanced sensors sweeping for threats. But the humans had learned to fool Imperial sensors weeks ago. "Welcome to Earth," a calm voice echoed through the corridors. "I've been expecting you." Commander Jack stepped out from behind a column, wearing what looked like a patchwork of human and Imperial armor. The Queen's guards raised their weapons, but she waved them down. This was her fight. "You've caused me quite a lot of trouble, human," she said, towering over him. Her 4 eyes studied his battle-scarred face, searching for signs of fear. She found none. Trouble. Jack smiled. I prefer to call it education. Your empire needed to learn a few things. The Queen's tail lashed angrily. Learn. From primitives who barely left their own planet. Look around you. Jack gestured to the base. What do you see? The Queen paused, really looking for the first time. The walls were lined with modified Imperial technology, but not just copied, improved. Simplified in some ways, more complex in others. Humans had taken the Empire's perfect designs and made them better. Impossible, she muttered. That's your Empire's biggest weakness, Jack said, stepping closer. You think you've reached perfection. You've stopped adapting. But humanity, we're never satisfied. We're always looking for ways to improve, to adapt, to overcome. A sudden explosion rocked the base. The Queen's guards moved to protect her, but Jack remained perfectly calm. That would be your reinforcement fleet meeting our new orbital defense network, he explained. The one we built using your own technology, just not the way you would use it. The Queen's claws extended as she stepped toward him. You think you can match me in combat, human? I was bred for war, enhanced for battle. I am the product of millions of years of Imperial evolution. Jack's smile never wavered. And I'm the product of a species that never stopped fighting, never stopped learning, never stopped adapting. Shall we see which is better? The Queen lunged, her enhanced muscles propelling her forward with devastating speed. But Jack moved like water, redirecting her momentum rather than meeting it head-on. Her claws met empty air as he slipped past her guard. Imperial combat training, Jack commented, circling her. Excellent against opponents who fight by your rules. But humans, we don't follow rules in combat. She attacked again, unleashing centuries of Imperial combat techniques. Jack met each strike with a blend of human martial arts and Imperial training, moving in ways her combat computers couldn't predict. Impossible, she gasped, realizing she couldn't land a single hit. Your species is weaker, slower. But we're smarter, Jack replied, ducking under another swing. We learn. We adapt. Every failure teaches us something new. The fight continued through the base's corridors, a dance of Imperial power versus human ingenuity. The Queen's guards watched in stunned silence as their supreme ruler found herself matched by a mere human. Finally, Jack slipped past her defenses completely, placing a small device on her armor. Her systems immediately went dead, leaving her frozen in place. A simple electromagnetic pulse, he explained. Your armor is perfect against energy weapons and physical attacks. But sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. For the first time in her life, Queen Alta felt genuine fear. Not of death, but of something far worse. The realization that everything she believed about power and superiority had been wrong. What happens now? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Jack's answer would change the galaxy forever. Now we teach your empire how to evolve. 6 months after the historic confrontation, Queen Alta stood on Earth's largest space station, watching Imperial and human ships dock side by side. The sight still amazed her, sleek Imperial vessels next to Earth's more practical designs, each learning from the other. The integration is proceeding better than expected, Commander Jack said, joining her at the observation window. He no longer wore his combat gear, but the confidence in his bearing remained unchanged. My advisors were right about humans all along, the Queen admitted. Your species' greatest strength wasn't your weapons or your technology. It was your ability to adapt, to learn, to improve. Below them, human engineers worked alongside Imperial technicians, combining their knowledge to create something entirely new. The fruits of their collaboration could be seen in the new hybrid ships leaving Earth's shipyards, vessels that combined Imperial elegance with human practicality. The first joint colonies are already thriving, Jack reported. Your people's experience with terraforming combined with our adaptability has opened up worlds we thought were uninhabitable. The Queen nodded, watching a group of human children playing with young Imperial cubs in the station's artificial gravity field. They moved together naturally, neither species showing fear or hesitation. My empire spent millennia perfecting our technology, she said thoughtfully. We thought we had reached the peak of advancement. But your people showed us that perfection isn't an endpoint, it's a journey. A massive ship caught their attention as it emerged from Earth's atmosphere. It was the first of its kind. A deep space explorer built jointly by humans and Imperials. Its design reflected both cultures. Imperial technology refined by human innovation. Human durability enhanced by Imperial advancement. The rest of the galaxy won't know what hit them. Jack smiled. Peaceful exploration, of course, but with both our species working together. They'll have to adapt, the Queen finished, a hint of amusement in her voice, just as we did. The station's command center buzzed with activity as reports came in from across Earth and the Empire. Trade routes were being established, cultural exchanges were flourishing, and scientific breakthroughs were happening almost daily. Your warriors have taken well to human combat training, Jack observed, and our soldiers have learned much from Imperial discipline. The Queen watched as a mixed squad of human and Imperial troops conducted exercises in the station's training area. They moved as one unit, each species compensating for the other's weaknesses, multiplying each other's strengths. We thought we were coming to conquer Earth, she said softly. Instead, we found equals, partners. A small alert caught their attention. Another Imperial world had voted to adopt the new hybrid governance system. The old empire was transforming, becoming something new, something better. Change isn't always easy, Jack acknowledged, but it's necessary for growth. The Queen turned all four eyes to him. You could have destroyed us, you know, when you had the advantage. Why didn't you? Because that's not who we are, he replied simply. Humans don't want to conquer. We want to learn, to grow, to build something better, together. As if to emphasize his point, a new ship design appeared on the main screen. A joint project that would revolutionize space travel. It wasn't purely Imperial or purely human. It was something new, something that couldn't have existed without both species working together. To the future, the Queen said, using the human gesture of raising a glass that she had learned to appreciate. To adaptation, Jack responded, returning the gesture. Below them, Earth continued its orbit, no longer just humanity's home, but a symbol of what was possible when different species chose to learn from each other rather than fight. The war that had started with derision had ended in understanding, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Queen thought back to her first glimpse of Earth, when she had laughed at humanity's primitive technology. Now she knew better. True strength wasn't about having the most advanced technology or the most powerful weapons. It was about having the wisdom to learn, the courage to change, and the strength to work together. The Empire hadn't lost Earth. They had gained something far more valuable, a future brighter than either species could have achieved alone.